All right, today we are going to be discussing something that half the population is going to be navigating through. And no, I don't mean jury duty, although that comes out of nowhere and disrupts your life as well. But
Yep. And just like jury duty, you don't know when it's coming. You can't opt out of it. And everyone just wants to go home.
but unlike jury duty, this is something that could last years, even potentially a decade. And most people don't fully understand it until they're in it or watching someone they love go through it.
That's right. Today we are talking about menopause, what it really is, and why so much of what we've been told about it is wrong, and what we've implemented into our female clients to actually help them feel better.
And if you think menopause does not impact you, I think you may need to think again, because it could be happening to your mother. It could be happening to your spouse. It could be happening to a coworker. Or if you're like us, it could be happening to a client that you're working with and you're helping them navigate through and taking care of their body.
And while menopause is talked about more these days, let's be real. Most of the information out there is so incomplete. It's sensationalized or just plain wrong. There are myths about symptoms, confusion about hormone therapy, and a wellness industry making billions and billions off of unproven supplements.
So here's what we're breaking down for you today. The real reason why menopause symptoms last so long and why no two experiences are the exact same. Why 8 out of 10 women turn to unproven supplements instead of evidence-based treatments. How menopause impacts muscle metabolism and long-term health and what to do about it. And lastly, how to best care for your body during menopause and being the healthiest version of you.
And let me be clear, we are not here to repeat what you've been told before. We are cutting through the noise, giving you real solutions backed by science that can actually help women feel better, and also being a resource for how loved ones can show up for those navigating menopause.
I think it'll be best for us to get started with what I believe to be one of the biggest misconceptions, and that is exactly what menopause is and why it is so much more than just simply not having your period.
Yeah, a lot of people think menopause is just when you stop having a period. And while that's technically true, it's also a massive oversimplification. Menopause is actually a full body transition. It affects your metabolism, your brain, sleep, mood, muscle mass, literally everything.
The official definition of menopause is going to be 12 consecutive months without a period. But the process starts years before that. The time leading up to menopause, that's called perimenopause. In that phase, it's a very wide window. It can be as short as 4 years, but as long as 10 years. Wide window, but it is the window that it could be experiencing symptoms, or you could be experiencing symptoms.
Yeah, and some women go through menopause and think, that wasn't too bad. Meanwhile, others are dealing with unbearable hot flashes, insomnia, anxiety, weight gain, brain fog, migraines, basically the full horror movie experience.
So the question becomes, why do some women get hit by a bus and some barely experience it? It turns out that the hormone levels alone are not the predictor of who has the worst symptoms.
Exactly. And it's not just about how much estrogen drops, but how your body responds to those changes. Things like stress, gut health, past birth control use, or previous phases of irregular periods can all play a role.
And I'm sure that you can guess this, but there are studies that show factors like obesity and smoking, even how active you are, can influence the severity of the symptoms that you may experience. I know this next point will come as no shock as well, but women who lift weights, eat enough protein, and manage stress tend to have an easier transition. And there's a quick side note of all the research that we speak about today and throughout the entirety of the podcast will be in the show notes below.
One of the biggest myths about menopause is that it looks the same for everyone. Like there's this idea that at the age of 50, every woman just stops having a period, gets a few hot flashes, and moves on. And that's not entirely how it works.
That is a great point. There is some research that I had found that shows about 25% of women barely have any symptoms. 25%, just zero symptoms. Good for them. while another 25% have tremendously severe, life-disrupting symptoms that can last years.
And there's the in between of that, because obviously that doesn't add up to 100%. Women who feel off but aren't entirely sure why. They might have random anxiety, weight gain that doesn't make sense, or suddenly struggle with sleep, and they don't even realize it's perimenopause. I see this all the time, literally on calls. People will be like, I don't know if I'm going through menopause yet.
Too often. And if you've been struggling with anxiety, brain fog, migraines in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and no one has mentioned perimenopause to you at all, you are not alone, because these symptoms often get misdiagnosed all the time. My hope is that through this podcast, you can see the importance in understanding your hormonal function and getting your hormones tested on a regular basis.
And that's exactly what we're diving into, what these symptoms actually mean, why they happen, and what you can do about them.
Before we break down these symptoms, it's important to note that your entire hormonal function, your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, your DHEA, and your thyroid function are all going to play their role in the menopause experience. But what we're focusing on very heavily today within the symptoms is going to be estrogen, because as estrogen drops during menopause, this is going to be the biggest player that is contributing to a lot of the symptoms that you may be experiencing during menopause. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with probably the most common, which is going to be hot flashes.
Yeah, and they're really not just mild inconveniences. For some women, they're severe enough to interrupt sleep, increase stress, and even lead to anxiety. And as we talked about earlier, these symptoms can last 7 to 10 years. I've also seen women have to miss work due to how extreme their hot flashes are as well.
Do you think their bosses were okay with that? Or what do you think they said to them?
Probably looked at it the same way of if a woman said that she needed to miss work due to her cycle being so intense.
That's fair. This happens because estrogen helps regulate the body's thermostat in the brain. And so when your estrogen drops down, you're going to be getting a false signaling that you're overheating, which is going to lead to the night sweats that you would be experiencing alongside the hot flashes.
And this leads me to the biggest complaint I hear from women going through menopause, which is horrible sleep. They either can't fall asleep, wake up multiple times, or feel exhausted even after a full night's rest.
And the reason that happens is also in connection to estrogen being lower. Estrogen plays a role in melatonin secretion, and we're all fairly familiar with melatonin as it's going to be a part of us getting into our sleep as well as staying asleep. And so if we're not having proper secretion of melatonin, we're going to have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep alongside having those night sweats, not fun. And then those night sweats causing a rise in cortisol, our stress hormone. It is a snowball effect of not being able to get any sleep. And you can see how this will build and build upon one another to have just horrible days.
I'm really seeing how these all impact each other so easily. Having poor sleep, never feeling rested enough often leads to the clients we work with also experiencing brain fog. Is the brain fog stemming from the crappy sleep, or is this connected to estrogen as well?
It's going to have a connection to estrogen. I think one of the best analogies that I can make is that estrogen is going to work as a Wi-Fi signal to your brain. And so when it is lower, we can think of this as the Wi-Fi signal simply weakening. And if you have a weak Wi-Fi signal in your home, which we experience way too often.
Way too often.
Shout out Spectrum. not the shout out that they want to have.
Yeah.
But when it is weak, you're struggling to get things to pop up on your computer and you're struggling to get messages out, all those different things. Have that same application to how your brain functions when we are not having adequate secretion of estrogen alongside not having the best sleep. Again, all of these things compound to make days very challenging.
Yeah, and you just end up having like these lapses in memory, slower processing, and really difficult concentrating. And I feel like this symptom often gets so freaking dismissed of women being told like they're just busy, not getting enough sleep, which is true, or simply getting older. So rather than digging deeper into the root of the cause, they're just dismissed and told this just is what happens, or you're kind of making things up.
And that's what we focus on here at Physique Development, of just getting to the root cause and looking at this next symptom. This is going to be the connection of estrogen impacting your feel-good hormone, serotonin, because as estrogen drops, so does serotonin, which can set the stage for a storm of mood swings and anxiety.
And it's crazy you say that, because I've had inquiring menopausal clients say, I don't know why, but I am having anxiety for the first time in my life.
Yes. This isn't just about being irrationally angry, which I think is what comes to people's minds in this situation of just like an angry woman. What's more often experienced is panic attacks and even depression, which could be more closely connected with this next symptom, which I would say is joint pain. During menopause, you may suddenly feel that everything feels stiff, achy, and inflamed, even if you've never had issues with joint pain before. The reason I draw this connection with depression is that when you're experiencing joint pain, you're not interested in moving a whole lot. You're trying to lay around and hopefully make it feel better. And then by not getting a whole lot of movement, you're probably not getting outside and getting a whole lot of sunlight, nor are you feeling very confident in how your body is looking. And all of those things contributing to your mental health, as well as managing any of the down days that you're experiencing. As the listener, are you seeing how interconnected all of this can be?
Truly so interconnected. The joint pain stems from the drop in estrogen because it's going to help regulate inflammation and collagen production in the body. Two things that are incredibly important for our joints to function properly.
Exactly. And the last symptom I wanted to note was the role that estrogen plays in blood vessel flexibility. That was a tongue twister, I feel like. It is going to help with blood pressure regulation. So without the flexibility to the blood vessels, we're going to see blood pressure elevate. And with that, that can cause individuals to experience heart palpitations or even dizziness.
It's awful. And anyone experiencing these symptoms is likely to search for solutions to simply feel better, as I would assume. And the first place that they generally find themselves is in the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry selling menopause fixes.
I can't blame them for looking for solutions, but I would love to provide some data on why 90% of those supplements do not work.
Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
It's
good.
terrible for you.
You should lift heavy.
High reps,
Carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are
life.
bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great
You
for
should
your knees.
squat
Knees over
astrograph.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my
Macros
macros.
is for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where Physique Development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need.
Let's get started with a quick story. A new client of mine, and for privacy purposes, we will call her Jenna. Jenna came to us taking a supplement for menopause that had maca root, DHEA, and DIM, all ingredients that have been studied for hormonal support. But guess what the problem was? She still wasn't feeling a whole lot better. And because of this, was quite resistant to supplements in general, which I think a lot of people experience. They purchase a supplement, they're guaranteed a response, they do everything that the bottle tells them to do, and nothing happens. Thus, all supplements are not worth it. I'm never trying another product. All supplements suck.
And I bet the reason the supplement wasn't helping is because most supplements have pixie dust ingredients, just enough to put them on the label, but nowhere near an effective dose. And that's something which is very important to discern the difference. There's a difference between just having the ingredient versus clinically effective ingredient. And I'm assuming that what you saw when looking at the ingredient profile for the supplement she was taking, right?
Correct. When I got a look at the ingredient profile, all three of those ingredients were just kind of in there. They did an amazing job with the marketing, and I go to their website. It has everything, all the ingredients listed out, but not the amount of those ingredients, just telling you what those ingredients could potentially provide for you. And this is rampant in the supplement industry. There are companies that go against the grain on this, and we're fortunate to work directly with two of them, Legion supplements as well as Revive supplements. Now, I would like to take some time and dig directly into specific ingredients that we did some research on. All of the research, again, will be in the show notes for you guys to reference what we speak to today, so you know exactly what to look for when looking for supplements yourself.
Yeah. So maca root, do you say maca or maca?
I say maca.
Maca, we'll go with maca for today. Maca root is one of the most common ingredients in hormonal support supplements. And unlike some more trendy ingredients, there's actually solid research behind it. Studies suggest that maca may support estrogen production, reduce hot flashes, and improve mood and energy levels in postmenopausal women.
But we need to remember, it's not just the ingredient. You can't just see maca root on a website and say, that is the product that I need, because a lot of these companies are only going to be utilizing 100 to maybe 500 milligrams per serving in their product. And what I came across in a lot of the literature that was supporting those benefits that Sue spoke about is going to be utilizing, drum roll please, because I think this is going to blow your mind, 3 grams per day of maca root, where, as I said, a lot of these companies are using 100 to 500 milligrams, being that some of them are only using 3% of the efficacious dose and telling you that you're going to get the benefit, which is just simply not true.
And ridiculous. And the second ingredient that has shown promise through the research is DHEA. It's been shown to support testosterone and estrogen production in postmenopausal women and may help with libido, energy, and skin health, which again, sign me up. All sounds great.
Yeah. Sounds awesome for you. And this is a strong one. You want to be looking for 25 to 50 milligrams of DHEA to support the hormonal function and the benefits that Sue laid out. What you'll most commonly see across many products, and trust me, in doing my research for this, I looked across a ton of supplements, and a lot of them had 5 to 10 milligrams, which will be unlikely to provide the benefits that we're seeking.
Yes. And just to make a note, he didn't just look at supplements just for this podcast. Alex loves to look at supplements all the time and to really dig into what works and what doesn't, so that we're not just selling snake oil or false promises to anyone.
Correct.
So the next one that is heavily marketed as a way to balance estrogen, and it does do that, but like many supplements, only in certain situations. So this ingredient is DIM. So do you want to expand on that a little bit, Alex?
DIM is a fantastic supplement. It is a product that I use a lot with my clients who are dealing with estrogen dominance, for example. And this aids in improving estrogen metabolization, and specifically the E2 pathway. But with that improvement in metabolization, over time, this will likely bring the total estrogen down. And as we've talked about throughout the entire podcast, as you navigate through menopause, your estrogen is already on the lower end. And so if we were to implement DIM through that process, it does have a likely impact that we're going to worsen some of the symptoms that you're experiencing. And so during menopause, DIM is not a product unless we saw through direct blood panels that you were in a different situation, that it's probably not a product that I would recommend.
I remember when you sent me this label and said, guess what type of client is taking this supplement? And I was absolutely bamboozled when you said it was someone going through menopause, because I was just like, DIM and menopause don't really mix in my head, but maybe there's research that I don't know about. Spoiler alert, there wasn't, and it didn't make sense whatsoever. So everything that you said, though, makes total sense. And this leads to the last supplement that we wanted to highlight, and that's black cohosh. Is that how you also say it?
Black cohosh.
Cohosh?
Cohosh.
Cohosh. You see, sometimes when you just read words, that's what ends up happening. And I do that a lot. So black cohosh, which is the most popular menopause supplement. But what did you find in your research on this, Alex?
The research was super mixed, and I would say probably leaning towards just simply being ineffective. Some studies showed small benefits for lessening hot flashes. But as I dug into that particular paper, the data was fairly weak in comparison to some of the other studies that we've referenced throughout our conversation today. And then other papers that I had found on black cohosh. Those showed no difference from the placebo group that was also being tested. So that's another one where I would probably sit that one out when seeking supplementation to support your hormonal function during menopause.
Yeah. And with that said, if you're seeing that ingredient on a supplement label, it may be a product to avoid. But when it comes to supplements to support hormonal function, it can be best to purchase single ingredient products to assess effectiveness for you. So to wrap up this part of our conversation and give everyone a checklist of things to keep in mind if they're shopping for supplements when seeking relief during menopause, what does that look like?
Please. Check the stinking dosages, not just the ingredient names, but the dosages that they are using in the product. If the supplement label has hormone support blend and a bunch of ingredients listed under it with a total milligram dosage in the upper right corner, don't even bother with it. That is a proprietary blend, and we can't confirm exactly how much of each ingredient is in there. As a side note, what it should be and what it's supposed to be is that in the order that they are listed, it is going from greatest quantity to less quantity of making up the total blend itself. But again, we have no way of confirming if that's actually the case. So again, in a proprietary blended product, I would probably avoid it. The second thing is being hesitant with products that you have to hunt down a supplement label online. This is another thing that as I was doing my research for this episode, I continued to run into because I would get a really pretty sales page with a picture of the supplement itself, but I would not get an actual supplement label. I would scroll down, I would get names of ingredients and what that ingredient does, but again, no quantity of what that is. And some of them I had to really dig around to even find the ingredient profile itself. And once I got there, I realized why they were hiding it. There's nothing actually in there. So if you find yourself in that situation, don't buy that product as well. And the last thing is, before getting any supplementation, focus on what's in your control now within your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep. None of these supplements that we've talked about are going to move the needle as positively in the way that you're wanting to improve, like handling those things can and will.
Yeah, I hope you took some notes during that if you weren't driving. But let's talk about some of the practical applications that we have used with our clients to manage those menopausal symptoms.
Absolutely. So these are going to be the things that we personalize and customize specifically for our one-on-one clients when we're working with them. And the first thing is going to be strength training. We cannot have any conversation before starting it with strength training.
Yes, if there is one thing that we want every woman going through menopause to hear, I mean, even if you think you're near menopause, even if you have even thought of the word menopause recently, it's this, that you need to be lifting weights because menopause is actually going to accelerate muscle loss, your bone density declines, and your metabolism slows down. So strength training is going to be the most powerful tool to combat all of that.
Absolutely. Estrogen plays a huge role in maintaining muscle mass, bone health, and metabolic rate. When estrogen declines, the support of those things declines as well. But resistance training acts as a safety net to help you retain the muscle tissue, the strength of your bones, and metabolic rate to run efficiently.
Now, your next question might be how much or how often should you be working out? And that is going to depend on a number of factors. I know people don't love the answer of it depends, but we are all our own individual person. So it does depend. But the most important is that what you are doing right now.
And let's just take the example of someone who's listening to this episode and maybe they're not resistance training at all. A lot of the symptoms that we had talked about Prior to this point, within joints feeling terrible, not having much energy, not sleeping well, you're like, dude, this is me. I am feeling everything that you're talking about. Let's get started with working out 2 to 3 days per week and taking a full body approach. Now, in those full body approaches, we want to actually start with an exercise list of exercises that we're aware train specific muscle groups. And we want to go throughout the entire body and be able to identify, okay, I've checked off each muscle in the body of the exercises that are here. And then we can disperse those exercises over the 2 or 3 workouts that you're going to be performing on a week-to-week basis. Then from that point, we can perform 2 to 4 sets of those exercises, trying to challenge ourselves with the weight that we're selecting at a close threshold of training failure. And that's going to look different for everybody. So it's hard for me to give a generalized look outside of what I'm sharing with you here, but that's going to be a good foundational piece for you because you can go into the gym 2 to 3 days after performing those exercises and get a baseline of where your strength is going to be at. And then from that point, you're going to be able to build upon it each week, doing your best to try and increase the weight that you are utilizing for the repetitions that you've selected. Maybe it's going to be 8 repetitions, 10 repetitions, 12 repetitions. I don't care necessarily how many repetitions it is. I'm more focused on you challenging yourself and getting in there each week and trying to beat what you did the week prior. That's going to play a much larger role of, well, am I performing 12 repetitions or am I performing 8 repetitions? That is going to be secondary to the intensity in which you're challenging yourself.
Yeah, and it's all about meeting you where you're at. So we have clients that do train only 2 days a week, and we have some that train 5 days per week and everything in between. So there's so many different ways to be successful when it comes to lifting weights.
Bingo. The second thing is managing your nutrition and nourishing your body. If you're navigating through menopause, I'm sure you've read a lot about how your metabolism slows down as you age. What more recent research is supporting is that decrease in metabolic rate has a lot more to do with just decrease in overall activity as well as potentially having muscle loss.
Yeah, and in part to thinking that metabolic rate naturally slows, many women are eating too little. They aren't happy with their body, connecting less calories to losing weight, which on paper works, but undereating can make symptoms that much worse.
Exactly. That is why we have such a strong priority on strength training and nourishing your body with a high protein diet as the foundation to feeling your best.
Yeah, and here's a good base to start on when it comes to taking care of your nutrition. You're going to aim from 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight to support muscle recovery and satiation. So you want to prioritize whole foods to make up your carbs and fats, shooting for a minimum of 40 to 50 grams. You may be thinking, Sue, I don't have time to cook and with my job or kids, and I have to make fast food work in my diet. Well, we've got you covered. We have a fast food ebook available in the show notes, and you can go ahead and make healthy choices on the go. So you can grab that easy peasy. And the last thing is, don't fear calories. You are fueling your body with each meal that you consume. And again, undereating is going to make you feel worse.
Exactly. I would say a large percentage of the clients who come to us are undereating. Almost always when someone comes to me, am I going to be increasing the food that they're consuming on a regular basis? Because what often is happening is that more regularly are they under consuming, and then they're having these blowout days of 1 to 2 days over the weekend that they're way over consuming. And then during the week, they're trying to clean things up. And so what we end up doing is increasing the intake from those days where they're trying to be better and just having a better consistency to the intake. They're feeling a whole hell of a lot better. They're sleeping better. They're looking better. They're training better. Everything is improving because they are actually eating more food on a regular basis. And I think that plays a huge role. Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing? Turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal? Grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program. Because you are awesome and I want you to have this program, I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show. The third thing is going to be maximizing your sleep. As we talked about earlier, this is the biggest area of complaint when clients are navigating through menopause. The big driving reasons why this occurs is that the melatonin secretion decreases and body temperatures will likely increase. Now, the good news for you is that we have a full episode going real deep into sleep quality, sleep supplementation, all those things. And that will be in the show notes as well. But Sue, can you give them a simple checklist to start getting the best sleep?
Absolutely. Number one is going to be cooling down your environment. You want to lower room temperature like 65 degrees and using moisture wicking sheets. I will also just make a little note here. Pay attention to the quality of your mattress and your pillow. That goes a long way. But even looking at like how heavy your sheets are. We have a comforter that we love, but it is extremely warm. And I notice even as someone not going through menopause that I struggle a lot when it gets warmer outside or just when the temperature changes of waking up multiple times throughout the night because I am too hot, even if everything else is going as it needs to be. And so we had to get a different comforter for that so that I wasn't overheating. So pay attention to these little things and don't get so caught up in, well, the temperature is in the right spot. Take everything into consideration. You've probably heard this one, but really limiting your caffeine intake afternoon. Your sensitivity to stimulants increases when you have these hormonal shifts. And so you likely might be more sensitive to caffeine in general, but just a good rule of thumb is to really limit caffeine afternoon all across the board. When we're looking at supplements, magnesium and glycine are going to be two incredible supplements for sleep. And in that episode that Alex references, we go into detail on all the supplements that could be beneficial and diving into that deeper. So I'm not going to go too deep into it right now. But another thing here is to strength train earlier in the day because those late night workouts can spike cortisol and delay your melatonin production. So if possible, being able to get those strength training sessions earlier in the day is going to be helpful.
Absolutely. I am huge on the training earlier in the day relative to later, because I do think that that plays such a big role, especially when you're challenging yourself with progressive overload and really getting after it with the training. It's going to be better to try and get it done earlier in the day relative to closer to the time that you're going to bed. Now, the last thing that I'd like to touch on when we're looking at the things that we're implementing for our one-on-one clients is going to be stress mitigation. Now, the best way to mitigate stress is going to be handling the first three things that we just talked about: getting your strength training in, getting your sleep in check, as well as nourishing your body. And so if those three things are not in place and you're like, I'm going to start meditating and I'm going to do these different things to handle my stress, you are probably doing something that's helping, but not going to help as much as some of the things that we've already talked about. And so keeping that in mind and focusing on those three are going to be a big step forward to managing your stress. Other things that I would encourage is getting outside, having a step goal, and doing so not in a rush state, doing things that maybe are a little bit more leisurely for you and encourage relaxation relative to, I've got to get this thing done because I got to get to the next thing and I got to do this. I gotta, you know? So we want to try and avoid that. I think, supporting your organization of your schedule as well as the schedule of those that you're caring for within your children potentially. If you have a spouse who's also needing you to manage their things, I hope that's not the case for you, but if that is the case, then you're handling that. And I think by having structure to your day and eliminating some of those small decisions that could mount up in fatigue will also help with stress mitigation as well.
Yeah. And you might be hearing some of these things and be like, boring. Okay. You're talking about sleep and protein and stress. We've been there, heard that. But there's a reason that we keep talking about it, because those are going to be the biggest movers. And I find that some people don't see how simple something is because they do think it's boring. And you might have listened to this and be like, what's the magic answer as to why I don't feel good? And you might have learned a lot when it comes to estrogen and being like, well, I didn't know it impacted all of those things. And maybe I've been taking DIM and now I realize why I feel horrible. But you might have gotten to the point of us talking about things that you can actionably do and be like, yeah, whatever. But I do want you to take some time and reflect on if you are doing those things, because truthfully, being able to manage everything else going on, you want to control the controllables. And again, you've heard that before, but are you doing it? Are you actually taking time to control the things in your realm of control? Because it can make the biggest difference on how your body responds to things. But with all of our more education-based episodes, we like to finish up with a little bit of a recap of how you can take action after listening. So Alex, can you take it away for us?
I sure can. And one thing I'll add before we get into the recap itself is that I wanted to incorporate a section of this podcast to get into hormone replacement therapy and suggestions within that. Because I have had clients working with a professional for their hormone replacement that have had tremendous success in their body composition and just taking care of themselves in general. As I tried to make it into this podcast turned into double the length, and I felt like it still wasn't doing it justice. So it may be something that we touch on in greater depth in the future. And I found this episode to be much more foundational in nature for us to build upon greater conversations around menopause, as this is becoming something that we're seeing more commonly within the clients who are inquiring to work with us. And as we have different cases that come through on a day-to-day basis, I submerge myself into the topics, as well as reaching out to some of the best in the space to be able to learn more and get up to date on more current research that is being performed and maybe not even in published papers yet. And so maybe we'll have some of those people on to be able to further this conversation and continue to educate you, the listener, throughout this throughout another episode.
And I just really want people to realize that menopause doesn't have to be a like death sentence, in the sense of, hey, I just have to accept that I'm going to feel awful from now on. I have to accept that this is how my body looks and I'm not going to see results anymore. I have to accept that like my life is ending at this point. And I want that to be the opposite of how you feel. We have had so many clients going through menopause or perimenopause who have been told that by their doctors when they talk about their body and wanting to look a certain way, have just basically been like, hey, this is how it is from here on out. You're just going to feel like crap and look like crap. Congrats, welcome to 50. But it does not have to be that way. And we have helped so many clients recognize that and truly feel, honestly, some of the best they've ever looked when they are either in perimenopause or postmenopausal, because some of these things work. It's crazy, but these things do work.
So to get into that recap, the 4 supplements that we had talked about, we had DHEA. This was a solid product and one that you may want to utilize as you're navigating through menopause at 25 to 50 milligrams per serving. And you may see on a lot of products that it may only be 5 to 10 milligrams. So watch out for that. The second ingredient was maca root. And that was one that was severely underdosed. 100 milligrams to 500 milligrams is what you'll often see. But what the research is supporting is 3 grams. So those are the 2 supplements that you may want to look out for. Supplements that you may want to avoid are going to be DIM and black cohosh. So those are the 4 products or 4 ingredients that we had talked about. When we get into the lifestyle things that are within your control on a day-to-day basis that we want to support, is that lifting weight consistently. Fantastic starting block. It is going to be the number 1 tool for keeping muscle, bone health, and metabolic strength. Making sure that we're eating enough calories, as well as prioritizing protein within each of our meals. Fuel your body, aiming for 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body mass. And please do not fear calories. Work to optimize your sleep. Small changes like cooling your room, limiting caffeine consumption, and strength training earlier in the day really do make a large difference. And the last thing of managing your stress intentionally, focusing on getting outside, staying organized, and limiting social media doom scrolling.
That's a good one for anyone listening, not even if you're just going through menopause. And if that all feels like a lot, know that you don't have to overhaul everything at once. I am a big fan of pick one. Pick one thing to focus on today, whether it is getting a workout in or hitting your protein goal or improving your sleep routine. Just simply start, because you need to pick one before you can do everything.
And if this feels tremendously overwhelming to you, you're just like, dude, I am feeling all those symptoms. I've tried the supplements. I feel like junk still, and I want to do the things that you're talking about, but I don't even know necessarily where to start with it, maybe. You should apply to work with us one-on-one. The application will be in the show notes. This is what we do. This is why we are here. This is the thing that we are so passionate about bringing to life for so many people. And we've had the opportunity to help thousands of people get into the best shape of their life and feel better than they ever have. So if you are interested in working with us one-on-one, the application form will be in the show notes.
And make sure that you subscribe to our podcast or our YouTube channel and grab the fast food ebook and deep dive into the sleep podcast episode in the show notes as well. And share this with a friend that is going through menopause and might need some support through it as well. Or, even send it to a significant other and be like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Take a listen and also know how you can support me through this.
Those show notes today are going to be absolutely packed.
Yes.
Between the studies and all the extra links and everything, you've got a party down there. So enjoy. We appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you next time.